Township of Scugog Planning and Community Affairs Committee meeting this day, November 16th. And I will call this meeting to order, and I will ask our clerk to give us the processes for tonight's meeting. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. So as we do with our electronic meetings, we're going to start with a roll call. Councillor Watton, are you present with us this evening?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor McDougall?
Present.
Councillor Guido?
Good evening, I'm present.
Thank you. Councillor Ross?
Present, thank you.
Councillor Kieserbrink?
Good evening, I'm present.
And Councillor Brown?
Present.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I can confirm we do have quorum for this meeting. I am going to just go through staff with us today. We do have a number of presenters and delegates and people attending for the public meetings also. I'm going to leave those people out for now because, Madam Mayor, you will be obviously introducing them at the appropriate time. So staff in attendance this evening. And for those of you who have joined us, please put your mic on mute right now. That would be appreciated. Staff in attendance this evening, just in alphabetical order, we have Adam Dubecki. We have Chief Administrative Officer Kenneth Nix, Kevin Heritage, Nicola Alston, Robin Prentice, Sandra Fry, Terry Barton, and myself. Again, I'd ask everyone to please mute your mic while not talking. This will avoid any background noise that may occur where you are and will avoid any echo in the audio. Please use headphones if they are available to you. It just improves audio quality. If you'd like to speak for members of council, please raise your hand, use the raise hand function, and remember to lower your hand up if you haven't spoken, and the mayor will call upon you when it is your turn to speak. Members of council, if you happen to leave your computer for any reason, please let the mayor know so that we can ensure that quorum continues to be met. When moving or seconding a motion, please announce your name. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed to the township's YouTube channel. We will be using an electronic voting process during tonight's meeting. At the appropriate times, I will announce that the voting is open and council members will be asked to make a selection. Once everyone has voted, I will announce that the voting is closing. If for any reason a council member is unable to vote, please announce your vote verbally and say in favour or against. If the electronic voting system stops working for any reason, we will revert back to the mayor asking each member for their vote. Thank you, Madam Mayor. That concludes my opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and now I'll call for a moment of silence. Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the nature thereof? Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had previously disclosed to our clerk 11.3, the draft plan of condominiums, as my property is adjacent to that development.
Thank you very much. And I see no other disclosures of interest. Are there any announcements from council? Councillor Brown?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. You're invited to join Big Brothers and Big Sisters of North Durham for their 3rd annual Toy Tea on Tuesday, December the 1st, to support local families in need. Last year, they helped 36 people from 11 different families. It's a drive-through drop-off. So donors get a raffle ticket for a gift basket. If you do that, all donations are accepted, but gift cards are the preferred way to go. So donations December 1 at the Port Perry Scout Hall in the big tent between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m.
Thank you. That sounded like your announcer's voice, Councillor Brown. Councillor Kieserbrink?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to give a big shout out to our fire department. That was a horrendous storm, a lot of downed trees, downed hydro lines, and there was a lot of first responders out there. Thankfully, Chief Burney reported that there weren't any firefighter injuries or trucker equipment breakdowns, and I just wanted to say thank you for all of their hard work. We were trying to get home and we're blocked on the highway because of downed hydro lines, so we're just appreciative of how they kept everyone safe.
Thank you, Councillor Kieserbrink, and I'm sure we all echo that. Thank you, Chief Burney, to you and your crew for keeping everyone safe in Scugog over that horrible storm that we just had. I see no other hands. I would just like to say that the numbers are creeping up for COVID-19 in Durham, not so much in Scugog, and we're very thankful for that. But must caution everybody not to be complacent. You know, I know that there is fatigue out there with the whole COVID and all of the restrictions, but we still have to remain vigilant, and we all know what those rules are. I don't need to repeat them. It just becomes elevator music now, but please be vigilant. Thank you very much. Any announcements from staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to the public meetings. I'd just like to say, first of all, before we go into the public meeting, that landowners have an opportunity of applying for things that they would like to do on their land. That doesn't mean to say that in the long run that will be allowed, but just everybody that lives in Scugog Township has that right. All of us do, every resident, and every landowner. So the purpose of this meeting is to hear from the public for input, to go along with all of the studies and all of the information we have in order for staff to make a recommendation. So this portion of the meeting has been set aside for a public meeting held under Section 34 of the Planning Act to consider applications for a zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Mayu Balasubramaniam, I hope I pronounced that correctly, of the Cantum Group Limited on behalf of 2334225 Ontario Inc. for the lands located at 20 and 30 Brook Street, Manchester. The purpose of this public meeting is to obtain the views and comments of the public. No decisions will be made at this public meeting. It is important that the public express their views either in person or in writing prior to decisions being made by the Council of the Township of Scugog and the Region of Durham. The notification of this public meeting provided residents with options on how to be added to this meeting. However, written comments can still be submitted to the Township's planning staff at any time prior to the passing of the implementing bylaw. Everyone in this virtual public meeting has the opportunity to speak. Please be considerate of the acknowledged speaker by refraining from speaking into your microphone at the same time. While you may agree or disagree with the speaker, please refrain from audible responses and respect each speaker. To ensure that all of those who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, speakers should limit their comments to 5 minutes and keep comments as brief and to the point as possible. Prior to speaking, please clearly state and spell your name and provide your property address for records purposes. You are encouraged to provide your comments in writing also, so that staff can ensure that they are accurately recorded and appropriately considered. If you do not speak at this public meeting or provide written comments before Council makes a decision on this application, you may not be entitled to appeal Council's decision or be added as a party to a hearing by the local planning appeal tribunal, unless the tribunal determines there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you would like to be notified of the decision on these matters, please provide written notice of your desire to receive notice. The notice for this public meeting was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. I will now ask Nicola Alston to provide information regarding the applications and an overview of the staff information report included in this agenda. Mr. Alston, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My name is Nicola Alston, and I am a planner with the Township of Scugog. Next slide, please. The purpose of this public meeting is to present the proposed zoning bylaw amendment submitted by 2334225 Ontario Incorporated with respect to 20 and 30 Brook Street, and obtain comments from Council and the public. The application for a zoning bylaw amendment was deemed complete by the Township on January 30th, 2020. A site plan application will also be required to facilitate this development. I will provide an overview of the application and then the applicant's consultant will provide a more detailed presentation. The subject lands are located on the south side of Brook Street in Manchester, between Highway 7A and Highway 12. Across Brook Street to the north are industrial and commercial uses, including the Miller Maintenance Yard and a car repair and maintenance establishment. To the south are vacant land zoned highway commercial and Lakeview Marine. To the east are 4 single detached houses, which are accessed off of Brook Street, that are owned by others, and also 1 house which is not currently occupied at 20 Brook Street. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Alston, I've changed it 3 times. Are you
Oh,
on the
sorry.
correct slide?
I would like slide 3, please. Site plan. Perhaps my screen is delayed. I'll continue on.
Site plan is up now, Ms. Alston.
Thank you. The owners propose to construct and operate a 4-pump gas station with a canopy and an associated single-story retail or convenience store. There is a 14-meter buffer zone from Highway 12, which is a Ministry of Transportation requirement. The gas station is proposed to be accessed off of Brook Street, as the MTO will not permit access off of Highway 12. Next slide, please. The proposed building on this site will be for retail associated with the gas station, and the design will resemble a single detached house. This was a request from Development Services staff in order for the use to better blend in with the neighborhood. The design of the building has been reviewed by the township's architectural control consultant, and all the architect's suggestions have been incorporated into the design by the applicant. The building fronts Brook Street, which will serve as a visual shield to the gas pumps, canopy, and parking areas. Next slide, please. These lands are located within the hamlet of Manchester and designated hamlet in the township's official plan. The official plan encourages small-scale commercial, industrial, and tourism-related uses that are compatible with the character and scale of the hamlet. Next slide, please. The draft zoning bylaw is proposing to rezone the subject lands at 30 Brook Street from highway commercial or C4 to highway commercial with an exception, and to also rezone the lands at 20 Brook Street from hamlet residential private service to highway commercial with the same exception. The environmental protection zone lands will remain. The proposed exceptions to the C4 zone are to reduce the exterior side yard setback along Brook Street to 1.7 meters, whereas 15 meters is required by the bylaw, and to reduce the proposed driving aisle width between the parking area and the gas pumps from 7 meters to 6 meters. The purpose of the reduced exterior side yard setback is so that the proposed building will visually shield the parking area and gas pumps from the street. Notice of this virtual public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, with notice provided to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as any interested parties who requested notice. Public meeting was advertised in the local newspapers, and a sign has also been placed on the property to notify the public of this public meeting. A page specific to this development has also been created on the township's My Scugog Our Community website to provide more information to the public and where questions and comments can be submitted. Township staff and external agencies have been circulated and have provided comments on this application. Kawartha Conservation Authority advised that they had no objection to the rezoning of the property, but will require additional information at the site plan stage in order to support the gas station development. The Ministry of Transportation has advised that the general layout of the proposed site plan provided is acceptable to them, and they have no objection in principle to this rezoning. However, if the site is developed as a gas station, infrastructure improvements to Highway 12 will be required, such as a left turn lane onto Brook Street from southbound Highway 7 and 12. Other improvements could also be required, which will be determined by a revised traffic impact statement, which will be required at the site plan stage. The region's health department has advised that they will require additional information on this application prior to the region being able to provide comments on the rezoning. The lots at 20 and 30 Brook Street will be required to be merged. The health department will also need a proposed sewage system design, and the sewage system and well servicing the existing dwelling at 20 Brook will need to be properly abandoned. The township's public works session has advised that the road improvements to Brook Street will be required. Other township comments relate to a future site plan application. Township staff continue to review the documents and plans submitted with the application and will continue to work with the consultant and owner to address any agency and public comments and questions. 14 sets of comments have been received from residents to date, and a summary of these comments have been provided to Township Council. The public's comments are primarily concerning the potential devaluation of their properties, traffic concerns in the area, including speed and volume of traffic on Brook Street, and the current state of Brook Street which is in need of repair, environmental concerns, such as how the gas station will affect wildlife, potential fuel leaks, the runoff of contaminants affecting the creek, and flooding. Other comments are with respect to health concerns, such as potential well water contamination, and existing gas stations losing business, and questioning why another gas station is needed. Further comments include concerns about smells, noise, and light pollution, and concerns of existing soil conditions and whether or not they are suitable for the proposed development, and also comments advising that residents are not necessarily opposed to commercial development on the lands already zoned commercial. However, they advise that it should be a business that doesn't have such a negative impact on traffic, health, the environment, and home values. A future staff report will include an analysis of the comments received tonight, together with any written comments received, and make a recommendation on the application. Madam Mayor, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Olson. And I will now ask Yazo Somalingam, and I hope I've pronounced that correctly, to present information regarding this application on behalf of the applicant. Please unmute your microphone and proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Council members. My name is Yaso Somalingam from Cantam Group Limited. My client approached us for this development about 7-8 years ago, and we have been working with the municipality and MTO and region on this matter for a long time. This site's been abandoned as a commercial zone site for a long time period, and we're trying to come up with the best solution from our client, as well as which is applicable to the current zoning bylaws and site-specific zoning bylaws. So that's a process which we are going through right now. We had a previous public meeting on the same development long time ago, and some of them, due to the delay in the application process, with the limited planning support available at the municipality and so on, with the development delayed, and with the new planning staff at the municipality, we're working very diligently with them, and we have been supporting with all the requirements what they have been asking, and we are front of you again here for this approval. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, the subject land here is the major part of the land is which is number 30, which is already a commercial zone, and about 1/3 of the land is 20, which is a residential zone at present time, and we are converting into the site-specific commercial zone. Next slide, please. So right now, the 30 Brook Street is an existing commercial land which has fronting onto Highway 12, and which We do not have any access directly from Highway 12, and we have been working with MTO and region on this matter together with the municipality, and we came up with appropriate plan. As a conservation authority want a setback from the wetlands along the south side of the property, which takes much of the land for that. So we need an extra land to convert from 20 Brock Street from residential zone to the site-specific commercial zone to accommodate the necessary septic beds and the traffic movements. Next slide, please. As you note here, the setback requirements for the MTO about 12 meters along the Highway 12 is being set, and the daylight triangle is allowed, which is highlighted on the north west corner, which is allowed for the MTO, as well as the MTO wanted the site to be away from certain distance away from the Highway 12 to have a proper traffic movement. And we kept and maintained that distance as well to make this one to work. The next slide, please. So this is completely with elevation which really blends with the existing residential neighborhood there. And we worked with the planning department, with their own architect to come up with this elevation, which will blends into the neighborhood to have a character. And this building also covers the pumps behind and the parking and the driveways behind. In overall, we originally put an application in the same nature with the drive-through facilities, and due to the MTO traffic requirements and with the additional traffic volume there with the traffic impact study, we had to remove the drive-through facilities. So at this time, we are going only with regular gas station with the convenience store, which will also help the neighborhood for easy access, which they don't need to cross the Highway 12 to the other side to go for any convenience store or anything in that nature in that intersection. Can we go to the site plan slide, please? The site plan slide. I think number 2 or sorry 3. Yes. Okay. So if you look at this one, the building is placed such a way along the Brook Street, which covers the whole pumps and the parking areas and the drive-throughs, and it's away from the streetscape, as well as there's a big setbacks on the back side of the property as well as in the front side of the property, which is MTO requirements as well as conservation authority requirements to be away from the wetlands there. Now, the both access points are away from Highway 12, and this is as per the MTO requirements. In addition to that, we have done the traffic impact study, which requesting some certain improvements along Highway 12 as well as Brook Street, which we will be going with the revised report as per the MTO request, and we'll be furnishing that during the site plan application, and we'll follow all the recommendation before this the building is in operation. That concludes my presentation. I'm open for any questions.
Madam Mayor, are you still with us?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions from council on the presentations or the associated staff report that starts on page 3? Questions from council. Councillor Kiesebrink.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to our staff and to the other gentlemen for your report. Sorry, I see Cantum Group. I just don't see. Oh, I see you on the screen, Yazzo, Mr. Yazzo. Thank you very much for your report. I was just curious. So Currently, part of the property is already zoned commercial. So the reason, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nicola, but that commercial zoning does include permission for a gas station already. That's already an existing use on 30 Brook Street.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that is correct. The highway commercial or C4 zone does permit a gas station.
So then the reason that that the 20 Brook Street is getting an amendment is because of setback requirements from both the MTO and the Kawartha Conservation Authority. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, part of the proposed development will be on the 20 Brook Street for the gas station. I believe part of the building and the drive aisle, but part of that would be for part of that reason being that far into Brook Street would be the MTO setbacks. The setbacks would be more from the environmental protection zone to the south for Kawartha Conservation. But that would be an accurate assessment. Thank you.
So if I could further through you, Madam Mayor, so that the gas station can't be located, the building as shown with the architect drawing, that building can't just be shimmied to the left onto the currently zoned spot because of the MTO setback from the highway. Is that it?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I think that's part of the reason. Perhaps the applicant could also address your question in terms of the distribution of the site. Thank you.
Yes, if you can go to the site plan slide, please. Yes, so if there are two reasons, actually I would say three. If you look at the site plan along Highway 12-foot corridors there, which we cannot use that for any development. And number two, if you look at the access point for this development, it's a certain distance. MTO won't that be away from Highway 12. The reason being that, if okay, so we had to push the whole access, even though the Highway 12 meter setback is there, we couldn't access the gas station or this development immediately from that corner there. They want the access to be away from Highway 12 intersection to meet at least so further distance from there for the proper traffic movement.
So it's not that you would be then severing the commercial portion. You need this entire piece of land to make the functionality of access and everything work. So it's as I understand, it's going to be merged now and become a single property. It won't have two addresses anymore. That
is correct. That's what one of the conditions on this approval, I believe.
Okay.
Anything?
So if I could, just one more question, Madam Mayor. So from the road, then the visual that people will see from the road is this historic building with the eyebrow, and the gas lights and so on. It's going to have, is it brick or what's the construction of the building?
It's a brick structure, and as you see that. Even though we are converting that 20 Brook Street into this, the more I would say along Highway 12, we have more lands going to be vacant and a green space there, which is creating a big green space area, one being part of the septic bed as well as it's a Highway 12 setback line there. So it's a big green area there. And then it's like a nice, it's going to look like a regular residence from the street view, but it's going to be a gas pump behind it.
So I think they did that in the town in is it Brooklyn? There's a hamlet that has a gas station beside a church on her way into Port Perry on Scugog, and they did the same thing.
Yeah, that's
Columbus. Yes. So they did that. They put the gas station. So the visual from the road is a historic building, but then so you're proposing that the pumps themselves are physically in behind the building to preserve the visual from the roadside view. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, madam.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Councillor Kiesig-Brink. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor. I mean, you can put the pumps wherever you want, but you're going to see them from the highway, I think, anyway. So I mean, you may not see them from Brook Street, but you're going to see them from the highway. I seriously question as to whether or not we need another gas station. And I would ask the agent in particular, what makes you think that we need a gas station at that location or need another one at all at this time?
Yes. Okay. Typically, when the towns develop and the highway corridors need the traffic increases, they need more gas stations. There are two reasons, which I would say, planning point of view. One is being developed, and then it's a commercial site. My client purchased this with the intention of developing to a gas station, and he did his due diligence work, checking with the municipality at the time of purchase and ensured that this is allowed. My client, he did lots of gas stations in Ontario. He has developed this gas station with Tim Hortons, McDonald's, and any other developments there. And even Highway 12, I think he has done a few of them already. Number two, as a planning point of view, as a town, when the traffic increases, sometimes it's in an intersection like this, it's always better to have a gas station in both sides of this big highway corridor, so that the cars don't need to cross the street just to pump the gas when they're coming on the northbound or southbound basis, so that even helps reduce traffic congestion there. So it's worked both ways, the planning point of view as well as a right of any developer or citizen when they buy the land to develop. They need, and also the Petro-Canada has given the letter of intent in 2016, I believe, the intention to move in there. They did the market research there, and then they found that it's an appropriate development on their point of view to move into this location.
Did your client contact or discuss any of this with any of the neighbors who are going to be affected by a gas station near their property?
As it's mentioned earlier, we had developed this application about 3 years ago. We had a meeting and we discussed it in detail. And at the time, the proposal was even with the drive-through facilities. And he even contacted the neighbors there, and then we discussed at the meeting, right after the meeting, before the meeting, and we went through the same procedure at the time too. Compared to that development at the time and now, the major key things are, one, there's no drive-through at this time. And number two, the access point for this site is far away from Highway 12. And the thing is that the building is earlier, so located on the east side on the property. So the pumps were visible from Highway 12 as well as from the local street. But now the building's been located on the front of the property, so that the gas pumps comes in the back. And the building itself blends with the existing residences, so it's architecturally it blends with the existing character of the houses there.
Was there ever any thought given to building something else on this property besides a gas station, where you could put a private residence on there, you could build something else because it's zoned commercial? Was anything like that considered before this came along?
I think that my client, he did purchase this one. They own the gas station development business, so they purchased this under the commercial zone, which as for a gas station development, I don't think he paid for a commercial property, and it's been paying for commercial development taxes on that. And his intention is to develop as a gas station, which is allowed for a gas station, and it's been zoned for commercial all this time. And his intention is to develop as a gas station and give some employment for a few people over there.
Nicola, there's talk of a fast food establishment. Could that be added later if they're successful in getting a gas station here?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that was part of their previous proposal. Their current proposal does not provide a drive-through. However, it is a permitted use.
Okay, and one more if I may, and then that's it for me. You're going to have traffic emptying onto Brook Street, and it's, some of that traffic is going to be going right instead of left coming out of that building. So you're going to be approaching 7A on Brook Street. It's already a pretty quiet street. I'm sure they don't like the cut-throughs that they have now. Is there any way that if in fact this was successful, somebody would be looking at putting a traffic light in there or a better way to control the traffic going back into Port Perry on 7A?
We have done a traffic study on this application a long time ago, 2-3 years ago, and that's how the MTO looked into this, and then they made some recommendations, and also the traffic study recommends some kind of an improvement along the Brook Street too. But we will be doing, once this is approved, since it's an old traffic study, excuse me, we'll be making another traffic study right after this approval, and we'll be going with their recommendations, and with the planning staff, we'll proceed according to their recommendations.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor.
I'm sorry, I did it again. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor McDougall?
Yeah, excuse me. Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you both for your presentations. A question for planning staff first is Manchester commercial developments in or commercial land in Manchester. How much of Manchester would already be commercial developments? Looking at the west side, the gas station, the car fix-it, and the 2 empty lots. And then on the east side, we go from repair garage, MTO with an M2, and then this commercial development, and then the corners commercial. Crossing the street, we have Hagen's Chicken, not to give names, and then a motel and more commercial all the way down. It seems to me like there's already a fair amount of commercial lands already in Manchester. Is that correct?
Alston?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that is correct, especially around sort of this intersection on the east and west side of Highway 12.
So if I might, Madam Mayor, this application right now already has a portion of commercial lands that fronts Highway 7A and fronts Brook Street as well. But we're looking at adding or reducing the amount of residential lands in Manchester and adding more commercial lands. Is that correct? That's the bulk of this application?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, the lands at 30 Brook Street, which are probably 3/5 of the site, are already zoned commercial or highway commercial, and then 20 Brook Street currently is zoned Hamlet residential. So it's only the 20 Brook Street, which would be one residential lot that they're proposing to rezone to highway commercial.
If I might, Madam Mayor, so without this 20% of the land, is this commercial site viable without that portion of land?
I think that would be for Yazel.
Thank you. It is not viable because for the safety of Highway 12 commuters and then anyone accessing or leaving from Highway 12 to the street, Brook Street, need a buffer zone. So MTO requiring a certain distance from that corner to have this access point for this development. So it's as the town grows or as the traffic increases on Highway 12, we need this distance we maintain. Even the MTO, when we started the project, they didn't have it. Now since they all know that we are converting the highway, number 20 Brook Street into commercial. They wanted this extra distance from the intersection, and they want the front area to be clean and vacant, so that basically, even though we are converting this highway, number 20 into commercial zone, we are giving the pretty much similar or same area on front of Highway 30, or not the highway, sorry, the number 30. Half of that number 30 is going to be left as vacant land or the grass area. So that is for the clear visibility for any commuters, and also to move the access point to this property far away from the Highway 12 intersection.
Further, Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. A question back for Ms. Alston. We're looking at the setbacks and the reductions on the property for the building. I want to say residence, and not a residence, the commercial building. And we're reducing it. I think it says a side yard setback. Is that not the front yard that faces Brook Street that we're reducing to 1.6 meters?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, as per our zoning bylaw, it's on a corner lot. It's the frontage with the least amount would be the front yard. So for the purposes of the zoning bylaw, the front yard would be the setback from Highway 12, and the exterior side yard would be Brook Street for the purposes of zoning bylaw 1414. But the access to the site would be off of Brook Street and would look like a traditional front yard.
Councillor McDougall, further?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a question for Yasso. Sorry, I'm not sure where the noise is coming from. Yasso, just thank you very much for your presentation, by the way. On the traffic impact analysis that was completed previously, what exactly did MTO mention for left-hand turns off of Brook Street, or the amount of traffic that Brook Street might see from this development heading to 7A?
I don't. Okay. They want an improvement on the Highway 12. So they want a left lane created in the middle of Highway 12, so that whoever coming towards the south in the traffic, they need to work on a left lane there to access to Brook Street. So to do this one, we had to widen the Highway 12 from the bridge just north of Brook Street on Highway 12. So that is that they definitely want that improvement to be done, and then they want that improvement to be done before even opening this facility for public. So that being established, but they still want an updated traffic impact study done again after your approval for us to proceed with this application. And as far as I remember, they want some they are not very keen on, or they are not, their jurisdiction is not on Highway 7A, but the traffic report wants some kind of an improvement on a right lane, taper lane or something on Highway 7A to access the Brook Street. But that's still not finalized, and we'll be still working on that portion of the traffic impact study once this is approved, because our main intention is to get the MTO approval granted before we come to this meeting. So that's what we worked with MTO on this matter. We got this approval a long time, preliminary approval from MTO, but after that we had to do certain developments as per the planning of Sukuk municipality, And that's took a little bit more time for the elevation development and the location of the building and so on, which took a little bit more time. So that's why it's got a bit delayed. But we'll be going after again with the updated traffic impact study to the MTO as well as the municipality to come with the appropriate solution or any improvement to be done on both highways.
Further, Councillor McDougall?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just concerned with the residential nature of hamlet residential nature of Manchester, and I know 7A has currently sidewalks on both sides of that street on both the north and south side. Will there be sidewalks on Brook Street as part of the improvements should this development move ahead? I think through to township staff.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, Public Works did comment on this application, but did not mention a sidewalk requirement. My understanding from Public Works staff was that they would also require the traffic impact statement, and in order to decide the width of the road that would be required. And so as part of that, perhaps I can ask the same staff person if a sidewalk would be appropriate.
That's all.
That's
Yes,
all?
that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple questions here. Number one, this is for Ms. Alston, I believe, is the current setback. I'm not quite understand the setback being reduced from 15 meters to 1.7 meters. Is that on the north side of the street? Is that actually on Brook, or is that Brook, or is that on the setback that's, I guess, southeast? That would be the setback to the neighbors.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, it would be, I don't know if you can see my cursor right now, but along Brook Street.
Okay, that's fine. So what is the setback between this proposed development and the neighbors to the southeast?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, my understanding from the applicant is that the proposed development would end sort of halfway through number 20. So I don't know if you can see my cursor, but so this was half of Brook Street, 20 Brook Street, and that's the other half. My understanding is that that would remain vacant, and that the existing structures on the property would be taken down.
Okay, and just further, so currently the setback's at 15 meters, being reduced to 1.7. That's a significant reduction. Why is it currently at 15 meters? Is it to protect something that we're now negating, or what's the reason for the 15 meters that is there right now?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that is a standard zoning bylaw requirement. However, in this instance, we thought it would be better to have the building presence on the street so that it could shield the development of the pumps and the lighting and the parking area.
Okay, thank you. Further through, Madam Mayor, this is a question to Mr. Yazzo. In regards to the signage out front, the only the building that you've presented here being one that looks like a residence, what kind of signage will be out front? I know the one that Councillor Kiesebrink referred to in Columbus has advertising and neon signs out front. Will something similar be present at this proposed site?
The signage, there'll be regular pylon signage along Highway 12 for the identification for commuters so that they see that well ahead so that they can make appropriate speed reduction to access the gas station. But inside the gas station itself, just a regular signage similar to what other site you are referring to. So we are going with that. So the main identification we need is just the pylon sign, which will be along Highway 12. It's far away from this building anyway. But other than that, we will be going with the minimum as per whatever the recommendation by the planning, just to identify just in the front of the building. But what are the minimum requirements for the pumps area will be done according to um, um, the lighting and the lighting requirement plan requested by MTO as well. And answer to the previous question, the setback, we could have met the setback requirement if we place a building on the east side of the property. But the planning staff really want this building to be on the north side of the property, just to create a shield and also increase pedestrian movement and access to the building, and to create a shield between the gas station activity and the street. So when we bring the building to that side, that's where the setback requirements come into effect. But this is similar to, if you look at that number 20, there's the structure there, which is almost the same distance from the property line that we are maintaining here too. So it is not something new. It's in that area, but the setback is it's just because of that we wanted to put that building between the gas pumps and the street as a shield.
Okay, great. Thank you. Maybe just while this slides up, maybe you could just clarify the building that is located to the right of the screen. It's in a thick line. It's some sort of residential building. Is that the neighbor building that we're looking at there, or is that part of lot 20?
It's a part of lot 20 and to be demolished.
Okay.
So that's a total vacant area is going to be remain on the part of this development. So there's a adequate vacant land shield between this development and the neighbor's property on the east.
Okay, and just through you, Madam Mayor, just to follow up to that, what will be done to minimize the light pollution that will be affecting the residents in that area? Not just light, but also the noise, all hours. I assume this is going to be a 24-hour gas station.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So to answer this question, the lighting design will be done as per the light impact study. And we can definitely consider putting the lights only downwards on the gas pumping area and the vicinity, instead of flashing onto the east side or anything onto the south side. We'll have only the lights exposed to the Highway 12 and downward lights only. And to control the noise, we can put noise-eliminated fence along the property line, just to control the traffic movement within the property, which works very well even with the drive-through facilities in some other gas stations or Tim Hortons and so on. So by introducing noise fence along the property line will definitely reduce noise control to the adjoining properties.
Okay, thank you very much. And this last question for Ms. Alston. In the MTO comments in your report, it mentions the use of a holding symbol for the zoning until Highway 12 improvements are completed. Can you just maybe talk us through that? What does that mean? Would nothing happen until those improvements actually occur, if that were to happen?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, some municipalities use the holding symbol to state that you could say the holding symbol is so that no development would take place until that turning lane was built. However, a site plan and a site plan agreement will be required, which will do the same thing. So everything could be administered through the site plan agreement, and that no development would occur until that had taken place.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Kieserbrink, you have another question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I do. One more. I apologize. I meant to ask this earlier. an important aspect of gas stations is that there are tanks underground. There's holding tanks for the pumps and what have you. I'm just wondering, there would need to be an analysis, like I forget the technical word, but a geological analysis of the soils to ensure that in fact that this site, although it's commercially presently in our official plan zoned, already permitting a gas station, at least part of the site, would that not still be a requirement as a part of the site plan approval to our staff, to Ms. Nicola? And further, if for some reason the geotechnical study came back and deemed that the soils were not suitable and could not hold those tanks for whatever reason, would that then mean that although they had received permission, that the development would then not proceed? I'm just curious about that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, the Kawartha Conservation Authority have advised that a geotechnical evaluation of the soils will be required. Through this application, the applicant did submit a contaminant management plan, and it did identify the soils as being sandy silt or silty sand. I don't have the expertise to speak on the soil type. Perhaps Mr. Yasso does. So for sort of to address part B of your question, if any study submitted determined that the gas station wouldn't be, I guess, a recommended option on the land, then it wouldn't be permitted through the site plan process.
So further, if I could, so maybe Mr. Yasso could answer this, but who would the study recommended by the Kawartha Conservation Authority, which is required, we would need to respond to that. Who would be the entity that would conduct that study, and then when would that study be submitted?
Actually, there are two requirements. One is a regular environmental phase 1, phase 2 impact studies to be done to make sure this development is happening in a soil is not contaminated. So that is part of the site plan application process and will be submitted for that. And number 2 is geotechnical analysis report and stormwater management study report to be submitted to the municipality as well as to the Conservation Authority to make sure there's no contamination out from this land for any kind of a wastage, like the surface water or the controlled water discharge from the site is treated and clear from any kind of a contamination before it goes out from the property line. So that will require for some kind of a treatment facility or interceptor to make sure that any surface oil or anything spill on the driveways and any other areas to be treated and protected before it's discharged outside. So that application will be reviewed by Conservation Authority as well as engineering of your township before it's get approved during the site plan application process. These studies are very expensive and it's extensive nature. So we need to get this preliminary or the first step of this application, which is rezoning application, approved so that we appropriately do all those expensive reports and submit for all these engineering department and the Conservation Authority for them to review it and approve before a building permit can be applied.
Thank you, Mr. Yasso. That answers my questions.
Thank you. Councillor Watton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions, please. To Ms. Alston, the reading through the report as well as through the summary of resident concerns up to this point, One of the big concerns is the state of the Brook Street, and whether the upgrades are, what upgrades would need to be done and so on and so forth. Is that the responsibility of the municipality, or is that the responsibility of the developer?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, that would be the responsibility of the applicant, or sorry, the owner. But Public Works would determine whether or not it would be a financial contribution, or whether or not it would be a design build responsibility, and the extent of that responsibility as well.
Okay, and I just have one other question. Quite a few of mine have been asked already. I note in your report that there are several studies or such that have occurred quite a long time ago. For example, the archaeological assessment was done in 2013 and 2015. And then there was also the topographic survey done in 2012. Just, are there any expiry dates on such things as these assessments and so on? Or are they good to infinity?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, my understanding is that the ministry has provided a clearance letter after the submission of the archaeological study. As nothing has changed since then, I believe that nothing further would be required. I am not sure of any expiry on the sign-off, but as nothing has changed, I don't think it would. I can check into that and get back to you on that. And with respect to the topographic plan, the lands haven't changed since the survey was done.
Okay, that's all for me. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. Councillor Guido.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And as Councillor Watton stated, most of my questions have been asked already, but I do have one that's remaining to Ms. Alston. Out of curiosity, are we required to rezone the residential portion of the land because the applicant already has the commercial zoning on the other portion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the councillor, I believe you're referring to the portion of 20 Brook Street.
Correct.
That has the existing house that's boarded up currently. That was part of their proposal to begin with. However, the size of the parcel isn't even half of the required area of the Hamlet residential zone.
Okay, but there's no requirement that states the municipality must grant the rezoning.
That is correct.
Okay, all right.
Anything further, Councillor Guido?
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, that is my list so far, but I do have one question. It was addressed, but I'm not sure I heard what I wanted to hear. So it's just a quick yes or no, Mr. Somalingham, I hope I pronounced that correctly. Have the owners, have they not had a business plan to determine the feasibility and the likelihood of success of having a gas station in that area? Yes or no? Did they have a business plan done?
Yes.
They did. And it was determined that it was feasible.
Yes, they even got a letter of intent from Petro-Canada.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, that exhausts our list, and we have a few members of the public who have requested to speak to the application. And I would ask, due to, just to make things move along a little bit more efficiently, if your concern has been addressed in what we've heard so far from questions from council and the presentations. If your concerns have been addressed, or as the speakers speak, if the speakers have a concern that is also your concern, if you would please just move on to the existing concerns or the remaining concerns that you have. I mean, you can certainly say, I agree with this, and this, but not expand on it, because we have a number of speakers. We have a number of written comments come in, and Ms. Alston summarized them. So if they've been addressed, if you would just kindly just address any new issues that come to your mind, that would be very much appreciated. So the first one on the list is Jennifer Laws. Please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record. Then go ahead with your comments and questions. Ms. Laws.
Hi, thank you, everyone. My name is Jennifer Laws, L-A-W-E-S. I live at 11 Brook Street. Sitting in my living room now, I'm looking directly at the proposed site, and I would like to address a few things that haven't been covered. First, I'd like to start by something Mr. Yasso said, that their client had done their due diligence, and I'd like to remind all our council members and decision makers that to pull out the first application that was submitted with the proposed gas station being on the highway, I don't believe these developers did their due diligence, and now Brook Street is unfortunately becoming their plan B. The reasons that they have kind of shared with us tonight, the MTO wants this and needs this. They don't want or need any of that. Those are requirements that the developer needs to meet to have their plan B of Brook Street working. We've talked a lot about architecture and making this look pretty, but the reality is you can put lipstick on a pig, but there's issues that us as residents, no matter how pretty we make this gas station look, we will still have a lot of issues that won't be fixed just by a few walls or nice fascia. We've talked with 5 realtors in our area, some of the top realtors. We've submitted a letter from Joe Gallo, who stated that our home value will deteriorate by 10 to 20%. And as a self-employed artist living in their very first home that they purchased, it's devastating news. Of course, we respect the commercially zoned property has a right to be developed and will likely be developed. We just never imagined that the access would not be off the highway. We've talked about Manchester being an area that is seeing a lot of commercial development, and I'd like to point out that those commercial developments are off the highway, not off of our small residential streets. Manchester is also seeing a really wonderful new community of houses being built and more residents, so it is also growing as a residential area. Some other things that were mentioned tonight, suggesting that maybe adding sidewalks or signage or something is going to help Brook Street. But again, I invite any decision makers or council members, come to my house, come see Brook Street. It's a very small, unpaved residential road. It is paved. My husband's correcting me. Our neighbors, our commercial neighbors, the Miller Group and the car shop on the corner are wonderful neighbors. They're businesses that are more private to the public. They don't have constant traffic. They have regular operating hours. Our street is pitch black right now and very quiet. We've talked about how some of the design aspects might improve noise level or to the gas station itself, but nowhere was it mentioned what the increase in traffic would do. Okay, the wall might help with the noise of people playing their music or speaking at the gas station, but it's not going to change Brook Street essentially turning into a highway bypass with traffic and noise and headlights at all hours of the day and night. Again, I could go on and on. Most of my, typical general concerns that probably came to your mind first are listed in my letter, but I wanted to speak specifically to some things that I kind of thought were misrepresented tonight. I don't think that Brook Street residents or any residents of this community should have to pay the price for this developer not doing their due diligence about that property. I think it's time for them to just like move on. Again, we'd be totally fine with a commercial space being built on the already zoned commercial portion. Should it not affect the residents of the street negatively? Should it have highway access, not residential Brook Street access? And to speak on the residential lot across the street, I met in person with Mr. Gupta last year with the intent to purchase that boarded up house because my brother, my sister, my neighbor, my coworkers would all love to purchase a boarded up house and build a residential home in a residential area of Manchester. It's not needed to be rezoned commercial. It would be valued and appreciated by a resident and kept residential. Thank you for allowing me time to talk, and I'll pass it on to the next one.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Now I'll call on Edwin Laws. So please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record, then go ahead with your comments and questions. And again, if it's already been addressed, just would be appreciated if you just brought some new items forward. Edwin, please go ahead. Unmute your microphone.
Hi there, this is Edwin talking, Edwin Laws, L-A-W-E-S. I'm at 11 Brook Street as well. My wife is Jen, who just spoke. I just wanted to talk about the residents of Manchester. Last week, I walked around Manchester. It's not a very big town. It's a hamlet, as you've mentioned. I stopped at every house and talked to them about the proposal. Most didn't know that it was happening because the signage wasn't up. It had fallen over in May, I think, and then it wasn't posted until a few months later. And then with COVID and all that, people just aren't out and about and visiting like they normally are. But I went to every resident in Manchester. I spoke with them all last week, and every single one of them was against this project. They were originally against it when it was brought to their attention years ago. Everyone's currently against it and will continue to be opposed to it in the future. We all have the concerns of property value decrease, the light pollution. Most people commented that there's already a gas station in Manchester and it already struggles. A lot of us go to it specifically because it's our local gas station, but having a second one in our, we just don't need it. The street traffic is minimal now, but there's already frequent accidents at 7A and Brook. The more traffic that's going to be coming on and off of that street, the more accidents, and that's not a good thing. And then one thing that the developer representative that's present right now, they were making the argument of not turning traffic across the street to access gas stations. That's why they wanted to put one on the other side, on the east side instead of the west side. But then they mentioned also wanting to add in turning lanes, which completely contradicts that reasoning, which just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I mean, the main thing is I spoke with every person in Manchester last week, and nobody wants it. No, nobody thinks that it's needed. It's not a necessary addition to Manchester at all. And I hope that that gets heard by everyone listening.
I'm sorry, I'd also like to mention my husband, Edwin, and I, we also own the building at 4 Rose Street. We are residential and commercial owners in Manchester, and our business operates 75% green, and we see a huge influx of that in our town. And we hope that, we invest in our business to operate plastic free and as green as possible. And we see a huge movement in our young people and our new residents to this as well. So just again, to add to the not needing of a new gas station by residents or commuters or passersby, our current gas station closes at 8 p.m. So with the commercial development, we would love to see it push forward for this need for greener businesses. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Just Ms. Olson, very quickly, can you address the way we communicated to the public? This causes me some concern.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Every resident or every landowner within 120 meters of the site was mailed notice of this public meeting on October the 23rd, I believe. There was a sign on the property. I understand that from Ms. Laws that it did fall over a few times. One time I was aware of, and the applicant put it back up. And they also advised that it was updated on November 2nd to state the date of the meeting. This application is on the township's website, along with the notice, and also in the new web page that we have called My Scugog, our community, I believe it's called as well. And we had 3 sets of comments come in through that application as well.
Thank you very much. Next, I have Sarah Moffat. Please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record. Then go ahead with your comments and questions. Sarah? Welcome.
Hi there. Sarah Moffat was unable to attend tonight. She's one person that is still recovering from the power outages. Again, another, lack of representation tonight will be people who are still affected by COVID, pandemic, power outages, etc. So she is not here to speak tonight, but has submitted her written comments.
Okay, thank you. And next is Kaylee McMaster. Please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record, then go ahead with your comments and questions. Kaylee, welcome. Kaylee, are you there? Unmute your microphone, please. Okay, obviously Kaylee's having some technical difficulties. I'll try again later. Danielle Barton, please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record, then go ahead with your comments and questions. Welcome, Danielle. Daniel, unmute your microphone, please.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Evening.
Good evening.
I'm just wondering, when I look at that plan there seems to be some vacant land right on 12. And I'm just throwing it out there. My family owns that property, both those pieces. I don't know if that if that helps or I reached out to Mr. Gupta a couple of weeks ago. I haven't been able to get in touch with anyone. I didn't know how, and then I finally, when you sent me that the letter for tonight, I found out, and I did reach out to him. So there is another, I don't know if that's acceptable with people, but it could possibly be for sale. And that's it. That's all I got to say.
Okay, we will leave that with between you and the developer.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you. No, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Now I'll call on Mike Barton. Please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record. Then go ahead with your comments and questions. Welcome, Mike. Unmute your microphone, please. Okay, obviously having some technical difficulties. I'll go back. Susan Morris, please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record. Then go ahead with your comments and questions. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you very much. My questions have already been answered. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. We'll go back to Kaylee McMaster. Kaylee, are you there? Could you unmute your microphone, please, and state your address for the record? Then go ahead with your comments and questions. Kaylee, welcome.
Madam Mayor, it's Director Newman here. I don't see Kaylee in our meeting at the moment.
Okay. And how about Mike Barton?
Yeah, Mr. Barton is in the meeting with us, but I can see that his mic is still muted.
Okay, Mike, if you'll unmute your microphone and state your address for the record, then go ahead with your comments and questions.
Mr. Barton has his mic unmuted now.
Okay, please go ahead, Mike.
Hello there. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Oh, great. Actually, my questions have all been answered as well, so that's fantastic.
Well, that's great. We're doing our job. Thank you
Yes,
very much.
thanks so much.
Thank you. Now, thank you, everyone. Is there any others, Mr. Clerk?
No, Madam Mayor, I was not aware of any others that wanted to speak to this application.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, all of those members of the public who spoke tonight. Thank you for attending and providing your input into this statutory public information meeting. Written comments can still be provided to planning staff following this meeting. This concludes this portion of the meeting. And now we will move on to the report on page 3. Do I have a mover, please? Can you put the recommendation up, or is it up? There it is. Okay,
Should be
there's
up
the
now, Madam Mayor. Sorry.
It is. Thank you very much. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Watton, seconder. Councillor Ross. Questions or comments? Councillor Watton? No?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just confirming that this report is just being received for information, and that all the information that has been received this evening from the residents and from council and from Yasso and everyone will be taken into consideration for staff to report back to us as outlined in the recommendations. Just want to confirm that for the listening public.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watton. Yes, that's true. Oh, I've got 2 more speakers. Councillor McDougall.
Sorry, yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to echo Councillor Wotton's concerns in that we are not making a decision on this tonight. We are recommending that it be referred back to staff, who will then come back with a report to council again. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Kiesebrink.
Madam Mayor, further to the constituents' comments with respect to ownership, I just wanted to clarify, while we do have Mr. Yasso with us, if in fact the other address on Brook Street is currently owned, or if it is a purchase pending zoning, which sometimes does happen in these cases. So I just wanted to confirm that in fact they do already own that property.
If
May
you're
I ask
referring
that
to,
question?
Go ahead.
if you're referring to number 20, yes, that's already purchased and that's owned by my client.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no further questions. Mr. Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Madam Mayor, the voting is open.
Mr.
Councillor
Clerk, I'm not seeing the voting screen showing anywhere
Okay, would you like
on
to give your vote
Teams or
verbally?
eScribe. Yes, I would vote in support of referring back to staff.
Thank you very much. If you could just hit the home button at the top left of your screen and then go back into the meeting, that should reset it. And Councillor McDougall?
Yes, JP, I'll vote in favor of referring this back to staff.
Thank you very much. Seeing everyone has voted, Madam Mayor, I'm closing the vote now, and it should be on screen for you. Madam Mayor, you there?
Yeah, it's not on my screen.
It was carried, Madam Mayor, 6-0.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to report number, or item number 9.2, and that is also report number 11.2 in your agenda on page 21. This is the next public meeting. This portion of the meeting has been set aside for a public meeting held under sections 34 and 51 of the Planning Act to consider applications for a draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment submitted by Bryce Jordan of GHD on behalf of Del Park Homes for the lands located at 1691 King Street and 259 Union Avenue. The purpose of this public meeting is to obtain the views and comments of the public. No decisions will be made at this public meeting. It is important that the public express their views, either in person or in writing, prior to decisions being made by the Council of the Township of Scugog and the Region of Durham. The notification of this public meeting provided residents with options on how to be added to this meeting. However, written comments can still be submitted to the Township's planning staff at any time prior to the passing of the implementing bylaw. Everyone in this virtual public meeting has the opportunity to speak. Please be considerate of the acknowledged speaker by refraining from speaking into your microphone at the same time. While you may agree or disagree with the speaker, please refrain from audible responses and respect each speaker. To ensure that all those who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, speakers should limit their comments to 5 minutes and keep comments as brief and to the point as possible. Prior to speaking, please clearly state and spell your name and provide your property address for records purposes. You are encouraged to provide your comments in writing also, so that staff can ensure that they are accurately recorded and appropriately considered. If you do not speak at this public meeting or provide written comments before council makes a decision on this application, you may not be entitled to appeal council's decision or be added as a party to a hearing by the local planning appeal tribunal, unless the tribunal determines there are reasonable grounds to do so. If you would like to be notified of the decision on these matters, please provide written notice of your desire to receive notice. The notice for this public meeting was given in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act. I will now ask Robin Prentice to provide information regarding the applications and an overview of the staff information report included in this agenda. Ms. Prentice, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The purpose of this public meeting is to present the proposed draft plan of subdivision and zoning bylaw amendment applications submitted by Del Park Homes and obtain comments from council and the public. It is important to note that the Region of Durham is the approval authority for plans of subdivision, and the draft plan of subdivision application was deemed complete by the region on November 16, 2018. An associated application for a zoning bylaw amendment was deemed complete by the township on November 16, 2018 as well. A public open house has been held and was held on May 9, 2019 to provide residents with an opportunity to learn about the proposed applications that were submitted and to provide some preliminary input. Since that time, township and regional staff have been working with the applicant to address agency and public comments. I will provide a brief overview of the applications, and then the applicant's planning consultants will provide a more detailed presentation. Next slide, please. The subject lands are located on the north side of King Street in the south end of Port Perry between Union Avenue and Simcoe Street. Next slide, please. These lands are located within the Port Perry urban area and designated residential and open space in the township's official plan. The official plan encourages a range of housing types and sizes within the residential area. Next slide, please. In addition to the land use designations, the official plan identifies a road network, including proposed local roads. There are 2 proposed local roads within this area that are identified on Schedule C1 of the official plan, which connect Robin Trail to King Street and Union Avenue to Mead Drive. Next slide, please. The current proposed subdivision plan includes 324 residential units. This is comprised of 241 single detached or linked dwelling lots and 83 street townhouses. The plan also includes 1 park block and an open space block, which will be conveyed to the township. The subdivision has proposed road connections to King Street, Union Avenue, Robin Trail, and Mead Drive. Next slide, please. The draft zoning bylaw is proposing to rezone the subject lands to urban residential, multiple type 3 exception to permit residential dwelling units, environmental protection for the open space block, and open space zoning for the park block. Next slide, please. Notice of this virtual public meeting was provided in accordance with the Planning Act, with notice provided to all property owners within 120 meters of the subject property, as well as any interested parties who requested notice. This public meeting was advertised in the local newspapers, and signs have also been placed on the property in 4 different locations to notify the public of this meeting. A page specific to this development has also been created on the township's My Scoogog, our community website, to provide more information to the public and where questions and comments can be submitted. External agencies have been circulated and provided comments and conditions for the subdivisions. No objections to the applications have been identified by an external agency. Township staff continue to review the documents and plans submitted with the applications and will continue to work with the developer to address any agency and public comments and questions. A number of comments have been received from residents to date, primarily concerning the number, type, and location of homes proposed, traffic, drainage, servicing infrastructure, impacts to the natural environment, and community amenities, including parkland. The associated information report provides a high-level overview of these discussion topics. A future staff report will include an analysis of any comments received tonight, together with any written comments received, and make a recommendation on the applications. The township will make a decision on the rezoning application and provide a position to the Region of Durham on the proposed subdivision application. The region will then make a decision on the subdivision application as the approval authority. Madam Mayor, that concludes my presentation.
Madam Mayor.
I did it again. I will now ask Bryce Jordan to present information regarding this application on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Jordan, please unmute your microphone and proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To yourself and members of the committee, I can verify that I am Bryce Jordan. I am the consulting planner for Del Park Homes. Many members of council will recall that there was a very thorough discussion regarding this development proposal well over a year ago. As we heard, it was in May of 2019. And I know that many members of council were in attendance to listen to that discussion. As it was an open house, not a public meeting, the councilors did not participate. But I would like to highlight the changes made to the draft plan since then. This first slide shows in color the property at 259 Union Avenue, which was not part of the application when the open house was held, as the land had not yet been purchased, or the land purchase had not closed. However, as our client was intending on acquiring the lands, it was shown as a possible addition to the plan at the open house. And since that time, they have indeed purchased those lands, and they have been incorporated into the plan of subdivision. The addition of these lands has allowed us to add a road connection to Union Avenue, which is another connector to the collector and arterial road grid in the area, which provides additional potential to disperse traffic from this development. This road connection you can see here on this plan, shaded in gray, connects Street E to Union Avenue. And as you heard, a road connection to Union Avenue is a requirement of the official plan. If I could have the next slide, please. Here, you can see the boundary of the subdivision in red and 2 different shades of green within the plan. The park area is the darker shade of green, which at the request of township staff, we have taken the total amount of parkland required under the Planning Act, in other words, the maximum amount of land, and have consolidated it into one area here that you can see in dark green. It is adjacent to the environmental area that's in light green, and it's also adjacent to the existing parkland and open space areas immediately to the northwest, or sorry, north and east of the plan. If I can have the next slide, please. In the previous plan that was discussed at the open house, there was a large block for townhouse development that would have developed in a condominium format. But in keeping with the official plan, this revised draft plan shows townhouses in smaller groupings. In the slide in front of you, those are shown in the brown color. These are freehold street townhouses, each one with each unit having frontage on a public street. And the distribution of the location of those various blocks has been intentionally done as a balance between trying to locate them as close as possible to the Robin Trail, King Street intersection at the south end of the plan, but also meeting the target of the official plan to distribute those blocks of units. The reason why they've gravitated towards the south is our intent to encourage the use of the Robin Trail King Street intersection by as much traffic as possible coming from this development. Overall, the number of townhouses in the plan has been reduced from the original proposed 95 units to 83 in this plan. There are more units in the plan as a whole, but only because we have added the 1.5 hectares at 259 Union Avenue. Overall, the density has been reduced from 17.6 units per hectare to 16.7 units per hectare, which I can advise is at the bare minimum of the minimum, it's the minimum density that provincial policy requires that greenfield lands be developed at in the Greater Toronto area. If I could have the next slide, please. Just to quickly go over trails and sidewalks that are shown on this plan, which connect to the existing active transportation network and enhance the active transportation network in Port Perry. The red dotted lines show sidewalks that will be provided on one side of each public street. They will connect to the sidewalks, of course, to the northeast and west in the local road network. They will also connect to a 3-meter multi-use trail, which is shown in the dotted yellow line along the north side of King Street. This multi-purpose trail will be built by the developer, and it will accommodate both pedestrians and cyclists. And there will also be a north-south multi-use trail that's shown on the green line, which will follow from King Street along Robin Trail and then into the open space block and finally connect through to the trail system that is in the open space area around Prairie View Farm and behind the future school site. If we could just look at the next slide, I'm probably running out of time. The one to the top, there it is. You may be able, hopefully you can see the plan of subdivision with the thin black line around it. What this plan shows is how this development fits into and becomes part of an overall neighborhood. The development of these lands, which has been designated since 1991, is filling in an area between two built-up areas, which, of course, developed at different times towards Union Avenue and towards Simcoe Street, but certainly have developed some time ago, and the neighborhood is being completed, in my submission, by the development in between those two areas. It completes the street network so that vehicles and pedestrians can get from one place to another in the neighborhood conveniently. It does that by completing the local street connections that are called for in the official plan, and we saw those being Robin Trail to King Street, from Union Street through to Prairie View. But at the same time, we've tried to design those plans or those road extensions in a circuitous manner so that it would discourage cut-through traffic through the neighborhood. So this neighborhood, once completed, will have a full range of housing types, a school and parks. Significant natural features will be preserved, and it will be adequately serviced by sewers, water, and storm water management facilities. And Madam Mayor, those are the extent of my comments. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
I can't believe I did it again. Are there any questions from council on the presentations or associated staff report, which you will find on page 21 of your agenda package? Any questions? Councillor Watton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to our planning staff. I understand that part of this development is contingent on the EA that the region is doing, and that like the build out or the start of the build would be in 2024. Is this going to be a phased in, and if so, what is the estimated timeline for from start to finish, basically? Like how long will this construction, once all approvals are in place, take?
Mr. Jordan?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, for the delay. I thought the question was for staff. The pumping station improvements, the region is certainly well aware of, and is, as you mentioned, or the councillor mentioned, is working on the environmental assessment. Currently, we would expect that, and it's a chicken and egg situation. As you know, the region only builds infrastructure if development is taking place which justifies it. So we have a lot of faith in the region that they will keep pace with development and have the pumping station capacity up and running in time for the developments in the area to need them. We understand that somewhere in the order of 100 units will be assigned to this development in the first phase. How fast those are built will depend on the marketplace, but we would hope to continue to have a continuous building supply so that, again, I can't speak to how fast the market will take up the units, but that it'll be one continuous development process that may take 2 or 3 years to build out.
Do you have anything to add, Ms. Prentice?
No, through you, Madam Mayor, Bryce kind of covered it off. But yeah, the region has reviewed this subdivision with respect to what could be accommodated now and what requires the Water Street pumping station to be upgraded and in place. And so we would look at that. This will obviously be a phased development, and we would take a look at the phasing plan with respect to that infrastructure requirement.
Okay, thank you. Further, Councillor Watton?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Further to that, if the first phase would consist of 100 units, do we know what, where, and what type of units that would be? Would it be the singles, or would it be the towns, and would it be at the north, or would it be at the south, or do we have? I don't know. I don't know that much about development, so I'm just curious on that.
Mr. Jordan, have you got an answer for that?
If I can, Madam Mayor, the phasing plan hasn't been submitted yet, but that is something we would take a look at as we move forward with the subdivision in terms of the appropriate phases. And there's a number of factors that go into phasing with respect to road connections, how it's serviced. But we would also look for a mix of units within the phase as well.
Okay, I just, that's good to hear because there's a great need for that as well. Traditionally, do all the roads get built at one time?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, it would depend on the phasing, and that's something we do take a look at in terms of the amount of units that would be going in and which road connections are needed for that phase.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. Councillor Guido?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Apologies for the slight delay. I had to refresh my eScribe to get the report up. First, a comment to Mr. Jordan. I would like to thank you and commend you on your revised report and presentation to us. That was, we all remember the uncomfortable presentation that was done to the community the first time we saw it. So it's nice to see that we have listened to some of the comments from the residents and we've incorporated that into the new plan. When I was reviewing all of the feedback that has been submitted via planning staff and the calls that I've received the past week, one of the greatest concerns is the connection onto Mead Road and the concerns that that subdivision will be unnecessarily interrupted by traffic accessing this new subdivision. Can you speak to the necessity to have that connection and if there was ever consideration to not connect the two subdivisions?
Sure. Madam Mayor, there are two answers to that, or actually probably three. They get increasingly more philosophical. If I could have my slide 6 put up, I just want to start with the first point is that the Prairie View subdivision was designed for Mead Avenue to connect through. You don't typically approve a plan that dead ends with a number of units on it if you're not intending to extend it. If it was not intended to be extended, it would have ended in a cul-de-sac. The second is that the connection to Mead Avenue is required, as you heard, by the township's official plan. The third is the more philosophical, which I really don't mind getting into because I think we need to understand what I was saying about this development completing the neighborhood and filling it in. Those folks that live in Prairie View will one day become part of this development together with this subdivision connecting through to Union Avenue, such that one would hope the neighborhood becomes seamless and it's all part of one neighborhood. So what I've shown here in the red dotted line is with this neighborhood in place, someone living on Street H in the new plan wanting to go to Canadian Tire would use this connection, for example, as neighbors and members of that community and that neighborhood. If we could look at the next slide with this connection of Mead Avenue in place. Conversely, someone perhaps living near Winchurch Street or somewhere off of Prairie View would be able to stay within the neighborhood, whether that's by walking or by vehicle, to access the elementary school that's going to be built on Union Street. All I'm trying to demonstrate here in the more philosophical sense is this is all neighborhood traffic within neighborhoods. And the idea of not making that connection would never occur to a planner who's trying to create a neighborhood.
Thank you. And further to that, we've mentioned the school and development a few times in this presentation. Do we have indication from Durham District School Board that there will be proceeding with the building of the school in that location? I was under the impression that that wasn't in the near plans, but maybe I'm out of date with the information.
I can take that one. I actually had some email correspondence from the school board today because that question was brought up from a member of the public. The school board, to your point, Councillor Guido, they continue to work with township staff, and they will continue to assess the need on an annual basis. At this point in time, they haven't shown a justified need for a new school on the block that they currently hold off Union Avenue, but they will continue to review the need based on as development proceeds in these subdivisions and the number of students that come into the community, and they will go from there with respect to their future plans.
Perfect, thank you.
I could just add something to that, Councillor Guido. From my days as being a trustee, and I doubt whether anything has changed, the government will not give permission for a school to be built until they see the whites of the eyes of the students pretty well. So the students will have to be accommodated at Prince Albert Public School and maybe RH Cornish Public School, whatever, but in portables until the government sees the whites of their eyes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And further, if I may, to Mr. Jordan, you had mentioned in one of the responses to my questions that you would never create a dead end without the intention of future development. It would be a cul-de-sac. I'm just wondering then, is there any plans for future land acquisition south of 259 Union Avenue? If I look at Road C there, it could just be the way I'm looking at it, but it does appear that there is like a dead end or potential opening there on the third property south of 259. Is that just the way the land allowed for the design of the homes?
Mr. Jordan?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, it took me a while to mute. Partially, it's the way the land's laid out, but it's not a dead end, frankly. It's at the elbow of a crescent, but it's also there to potentially allow for the severance of the rear part of the lot on Union Avenue to add a unit to the neighborhood as well.
Okay. Thank you. And another question regarding the multi-use path or trail on King Street. Would that just run adjacent to the development, or would that connect? Would it be extended? And this was likely for staff, Mr. Jordan. Would that be extended through to the existing Perry View subdivision?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, that's the intent. So Public Works has reviewed the plan, and they take a look at what connections they want to make and how they want to improve active transportation connections in this vicinity. So that is something they would have it developed as part of this subdivision, and then they would look at the connections east and west of this area.
Then the yellow line there would be extended all the way down, with the future development, it would be extended all the way down to Simcoe Street?
That would be the intent. So yeah, we would take a look at where we can incorporate it through any development applications that we're processing, and then we would have to look at joining those connections outside of those areas.
Okay, thank you. And then the cost for that would be on the township. We wouldn't be able to get that cost covered by a development by any?
No, but it is something we would take a look at with respect to whether, and again, I'm not sure, but this would be up to Public Works how they fund it.
Thank you. Another question on your report, Ms. Prentice. On page 9 of 12, it refers to the community impact analysis with traffic. Typically, would that impact analysis not come at this point in the process so that we could understand what the overall impact would be, or does it normally come after?
Nope. So through you, Madam Mayor, community impact analysis has been completed. It was requested and it has been completed by the developer and their consultants, and it has been submitted to the township and the region for our review, and that's still something we are taking a look at.
And when will that be shared with council?
That the impact analysis itself is available on our website along with all the other studies. So happy to share that with council directly. In terms of township's response, that would come back in our recommendation report.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, a few further questions. The green space that is proposed, is this where we have some drainage issues?
Through you, you're going to have to be a bit more specific on the green space. If it's up in the northeast corner
It's in
of
the
block.
northeast. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So there is some environmental features in this area, such as wetland features. Those are to be protected in an environmental protection zone in a block that will be conveyed to the township. And it is part of this plan that the developer will actually be making some improvements to the environmental area and doing some enhanced plantings along that block. And that's why we felt the need to put the park block in that vicinity, so they kind of work well together and residents can enjoy the green space as well.
Thank you. And Madam Mayor, if you indulge me in one last comment or question, Ward 2 is seeing an excessive or an extreme amount of development. Specifically, the residents who live along Union Avenue are basically sandwiched between one proposed development and the existing development at Ribcourt and proposed Chieftain. Appreciating that we are going to have a large volume of increase or an increase of car traffic should this when this development occurs, when the other two developments on Simcoe and King Street and Euler Drive are ready. Overall, how are we ensuring that the flow of the traffic that's going to increase from these developments, that the flow of traffic is being considered, and what are we doing to ensure that all of the developments connect with each other in respect to how one would work with the other?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. When we have developments come and do traffic work for us, they do have to account for proposed and upcoming and draft approved developments in the area. So that is something that we do take a look at. We don't do each subdivision or development in isolation. They do have to take into account the collaborative traffic associated from the proposals and what's been approved in the area. So that is something we do take a look at with respect to coordinating those. And we also, obviously, as we're approving and reviewing applications, we do take a look at any sort of connections that we can make, both from a road perspective as well as active transportation perspective.
Thank you. And further to that, from an overall development perspective, with the increase of development, what can we expect from staff as far as monitoring the existing development sites to ensure compliance, so that the residents aren't necessarily the ones that are having to oversee or voice any concerns? Is there any plans for how we will be able to monitor all the developments that are occurring at the same time?
Sure. So given the limited staff that the township has, we do actually retain a third party to help us with our site inspections. And as you can appreciate, we haven't had growth in Port Perry for some time. And in the last few years, we've obviously started to see a lot of growth, and we'll continue to see some growth and development. So we've been tweaking our processes and our policies and practices. And that's something we continue to learn and grow from. And we will work with our third-party site inspectors as well as staff go out on a regular basis. So that's something we continue to monitor and work on.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Guido. Excellent questions. Councillor Kiesebrink.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Alston, for your report, as well as I'm not doing very well with the report names. I do apologize. But I just would like to ask a question with respect to the construction. When there is construction in a development, there's a lot of localized traffic of vehicles bringing in supplies, and there's a lot of dust and so on. And I'm just wondering, could you perhaps give us some insight as to how, maybe some tools and tricks or ways in which, like, would the construction traffic be limited to certain access points to sort of minimize the impact to the neighboring development?
Yes, so through you, Madam Mayor. This is, that's something we review when we're at the detailed stages of going into the construction. We do have requirements for construction management plans that we work with the developers and their contractors. So that is something we take a look at with respect to construction access points and where they get their access from. We always try to avoid, obviously, existing areas as much as we can in local roads, and we have them stick to collectors and arterial roads wherever we can. And we do take a look at some other construction mitigation techniques as well.
So at this time, it's too premature to get some insight as to how construction traffic would be routed?
I could give you preliminary what I would anticipate, but yeah, it would obviously depend on the phasing of the development. So that's something we would take a look at each phase of the development. And yes, at this point in time, we're just reviewing what the subdivision looks like and how it works and functions so that they can get through to their approvals. And then we would move into the detailed design and those details with respect to construction management.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just doing like you, searching for my unmute button. I'd like to thank Mr. Jordan for his presentation, and I have a brief question for him. Well, first is a statement. I'd like to thank the attention that's been paid to the active transportation plan and the trails and the connectivity of this neighborhood. I know that a fair bit of this neighborhood lies within 2 kilometers of the downtown core, which makes it walkable. And certainly all of it's within 5 kilometers of the downtown core, which makes it completely cyclable. The question I have is traditionally communities would have provided sidewalks on both sides of the street. In and around the 1980s, that requirement has been relaxed. And now that communities are adopting complete street policies again, sidewalks are starting to appear fairly frequently on both sides of the streets in residential developments. And in fact, many developers such as Mattamy and others are advertising sidewalks on both sides of the streets, I think to kind of entice the family-friendly nature of the neighborhoods. Would sidewalks on both sides of the streets be considered in this neighborhood?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'll offer the standard response, which is that developers and in this case, this development will build in accordance with the municipality's standards. And frankly, some municipalities don't want you to exceed the standards. So what we see on this drawing that shows the sidewalks on one side is Scugog standard. And that's what my client intends to build. If the standard was to change, then of course they would build in accordance with that standard. But I don't think it behooves us to propose something that is beyond the municipality standards when perhaps in itself it may not be acceptable to the town administration as a whole.
Further, Councillor McDougall?
No, that's all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Watton?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And further, if I may, just one quick question to Ms. Prentice. When you mentioned that for the oversight and of all the developments, not only this one, and just respecting all the concerns that we've heard from many of the residents in many of the sites where construction is ongoing. And you mentioned that we have a third party to help us oversee it, and that we are currently in the process of tweaking that. Would it be worth considering perhaps once that the processes have been put in place, that this council would be able to see a report on that and comment on it prior to completion of that report? I know that we've all had calls from residents about things that perhaps haven't been in compliance, and you know, depending on the busyness of our site inspectors or our staff. I think it's important that we can assure or reassure our residents that we will have good oversight, and I do feel that perhaps a policy or guidelines that have been also approved by council through your recommendations or through planning staff's recommendations would be considered so that we can all be on the same page. I'm just,
sure. Definitely happy to have council involved in that. It wasn't something I'm saying we're reviewing and tweak. I think over time, it's a continuous monitoring and updating of our policies and guidelines. So it wasn't something we're currently working on. It's just something we're always working on, and I think that's important. I would say I can look into that for you. It's not necessarily my section and more the development engineering section of development services. So it's something we can take back and come back to council on.
I would really appreciate that. Just again, it would help us answer the concerns of our constituents, as well as knowing that you know, our staff and the people that we're hiring are on top of their game. So thank you for doing that, and I'll look forward to your feedback on that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Watton. I have no further questions, and I'd like to thank Ms. Prentice and Mr. Jordan for their presentations and for answering the questions. We have a few members of the public who have requested to speak to this application, and again, I would request that if your questions or concerns have been answered throughout the process so far, or if a previous speaker or the comments that were condensed and given by Ms. Prentice from the public, the written comments, if that has been addressed, I'd ask that we would very much appreciate if you just bring up new items. So the first speaker is Mr. Paul Collicott. Please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record. Then go ahead with your comments and questions. Paul, welcome. Mr. Clerk, is Mr. Collicott on the chat box here, or is he connected?
Madam Mayor, I believe he was with us earlier, but he's no longer in the meeting at this present time.
Okay, I'll call on I'll come back to Mr. Collicott. Robert Tout, please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record, then go ahead with your comments and questions. Robert, welcome. Mr. Clerk, is Robert here?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I do see a Rob in our meeting. He's still got his mic muted.
Okay, please unmute your microphone, please, Robert, and welcome. Okay, we'll come back to Robert, who is obviously having some technical difficulties. Kathleen Patterson, please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record, then go ahead with your comments and questions. Welcome, Kathleen. I think it's getting late, maybe everybody's falling asleep.
Madam Mayor, similar to Robert, Ms. Patterson is in the meeting, but her microphone is still muted at the present time.
I'll give you a second, Ms. Patterson, to unmute your microphone.
It's Robin here. I just want to know if we can confirm or just reiterate how to unmute them. If we could do that, Mr. Clerk?
Yes. Mr. Clerk, please go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely, Madam Mayor. So for those members of the public, if you look on your screen at the top right-hand corner, there should be a little microphone icon. On my screen, there's a leave icon in red. Then there's a rectangle with an arrow in it. Then there's a microphone next to it. Click on the microphone and that should unmute yourself.
Kathleen, are you able to do that? If it's got a stroke through it, that means you're muted.
Madam Mayor, I can see Kathleen has written in the chat box she's unable to unmute your mic. Ms. Patterson, if I could offer some advice, if you happen to be watching something else on your computer that may be using your microphone, such as if you're watching something on YouTube, for instance, that's just one example, it does take over your microphone and won't let you use it in our Teams meeting. So I don't know if you're doing that, but I'm just offering that as one possible solution. And you're suggesting that you're not. Okay, so then I'm not sure how to fix your unmuting problem, I'm afraid, at this time.
Okay, Kathleen, I would welcome you to send your comments in, but I will try again in a minute. Ron and Catherine Bauer.
Hello, this is Ron and Catherine Bauer. We're at 235 Union Avenue. And we have a couple of questions. The main one has to do with the section of the plan that refers what is future development. So there's two main blocks beside 235 on the south, and Street A goes through 211, 212, 13, 14, 15 and on, which is the Carvon Triangle. And both pieces, I believe, are currently owned by Carvon. I wasn't sure if the developer had purchased these or if this is kind of future dreams. So that's one question.
Well, we'll take it one at a time. Mr. Jordan, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, so Madam Mayor, my client does not yet own any of the adjacent properties that would allow it to create the lots that we've dotted in on the plan. They are still owned by Carvon. Certainly the triangle that is in the very northwest corner where Street A forms an elbow is owned by Carvon. My clients, though, are in discussion with them, and it's fully their intent to, by the time they're building in that area, to be able to complete Street A and incorporate those lands as lots in this subdivision.
Okay, including the little piece beside 235, which is our house.
Through you, Your Worship, I'm not as familiar with the ownership there and whether or not that's under discussion as well.
Okay.
Says block, well, I'm Ron Bauer, and it's block 217, and it says future development. And that property borders directly onto Union Avenue, and
it floods every spring too. And that
Mr. Jordan, do you have an answer for that, or?
As I said, Madam Mayor, I'm not 100% sure of the adjacent ownership. Some of it may be Carvon, some may be others, but certainly the part that floods, I believe our client will have to deal with that as they develop the adjacent lands. So their preference would be to acquire the lands on either side of that triangle, block 217, to complete the lots. There's not a lot of sense in fixing the flooding problem and then not also being able to build at the same time. So it will be resolved, I anticipate, in the fullness of time.
Okay. And our second question had to do with the last public meeting. It was said that all three developers facing Union Avenue would have to develop a water plan on how to deal with the spring melt and all of the existing aquifers. So we notice in this amendment, there's an existing pond that will disappear. And is that a spring-fed pond? And where is all the runoff from this development going to go?
Mr. Jordan?
Madam Mayor, our environmental consultants are of the opinion that pond that was constructed by the original owners of 259 Union basically picks up overland flow in the springtime. And you can see where Street C is. When the pond disappears, Street C will pick up that overland flow and convey it to the open space block. And when I say Street C, I'm referring not only to the water that might flow on the streets, but primarily in the storm sewer pipes that are under the street, just to be clear.
You have a further question?
So was there a water plan submitted that all three developers worked on together?
Could I ask maybe Ms. Prentice?
Yes, so thank you, Madam Mayor. So all three developers are, will have to, sorry, let me back up. The existing Perry View stormwater management pond that's in behind Perry View and off Simcoe Street there, upgrades do need to be made to that pond in order to accommodate all three of those developments that you had mentioned, the two on Union as well as this Del Park subdivision. So those upgrades will be taking place next year as part of one of the other developments that already has approvals, but will take into account the stormwater and dealing with the spring melt and stormwater runoff in that pond from all three of these developments.
Okay, that answers all our questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll now call on Jacqueline Rooney Meisner. Please unmute your microphone and state your address for the record, then go ahead with your comments and questions. Welcome, Jacqueline. Are you able to unmute your microphone? Put something in the chat to give us an update. Okay, I see that, Mr. Clerk, I see that Jacqueline is here. Maybe she is unable to unmute her microphone.
Yes, and Madam Mayor, if I could offer just a very quick solution for Ms. Rooney Meisner and I believe it was Robert and Ms. Patterson. There is a phone number associated with the email that I sent to you. So you could possibly call in right now using that phone number, and hopefully that will work for you. For that as a quick solution while we are still in the public meeting.
Okay, Jacqueline, I hope you heard that. If you want to try that. And perhaps our other members of the public who are having difficulty could try that as well. So I see Kathleen is trying that. Oh, I see that Jacqueline has said that her questions are being answered. So we'll move on now to Mr. Collicutt was not in the meeting, was he not?
That's correct, Madam Mayor. He was with us earlier, but is no longer with us at the moment. In the meeting, should clarify.
Okay, and there's an R here. I'm presuming that is Mr. Tout, Robert Tout, and he says his comments have been answered as well.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I see that also. And I believe we had one late addition as well.
Megan Matthews. I'm not sure if I can't read my writing. Megan? Oh, Matthews, there she is. Megan, are you trying to phone in?
Oh, yeah, I'm right here. Thanks.
You're here, okay.
Well, I was able to unmute. Thank you. Yeah, so Megan Matthews, I'm at 173 Union Avenue. So yeah, I just had a question, and I apologize I wasn't here for the open house meeting, but as I've explored the area and I think of the beautiful character and charm that's present, like especially in Prince Albert and homes around Ash and Elm. And I can't help but notice that there, in the new builds, there seems to be a marked lack of that character and maybe a feeling of a lack of originality and privacy for the residents. And I just wondered how Del Park Homes would be making the historic character of the community a priority so that we'll be proud of this area and the subdivision 25, 50, or 100 years from now.
Mr. Jordan, have you are you familiar with the design of any of the houses that are being planned?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, I have seen building elevations, and I've had discussions with my client because of certain questions that were raised on the community input posting on the township's website. Essentially, the designs are generally somewhat historical looking in terms of, but nobody wants to see a fake historical building, I don't think. The building materials tend to be brick and stone with very little use of siding. But we're really delving into an area of personal preference. I can say that the municipality, your township, does exercise architectural control, and there will be certainly an effort by the control architect who my client pays for, but the municipality guides and directs to ensure that the designs are at the same one and the same time harmonious, but also not the same from elevation to elevation with a whole series of architectural guidelines. So again, although it's a subjective area, I think that going forward, the municipality is exercising an excellent program of architectural control that strikes a balance between those two aspects.
Megan, do you have another question or a comment that you'd like to make?
Thank you for that answer. And then I also had a question about how the homes were being built in a sustainable way that will contribute positively to the surrounding environment.
You're looking at a low impact development. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, essentially just to preserve or make it as green as possible.
Right. Mr. Jordan, do you have information on that? Again, we're into design a little bit, but do you have information on that?
Madam Mayor, we are at the subdivision stage rather than the individual house building stage. I can say that Del Park will be obviously building to the building code, which is getting more and more green, shall we say, all the time, and those standards are increasing throughout Ontario. But with regard to the subdivision itself, yes, I can say that when it comes to the engineering of the subdivision, there will be, and partly because of your municipality's requirements and the Conservation Authority's requirements, enhanced wetland compensation areas that will also be utilizing something that's called LIDs, or low impact development stormwater techniques, which is also becoming more standard, shall we say, but it's also a specific requirement going forward in the engineering design of this development.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does that answer your questions, Megan, or do you have anything else you'd like to share with us?
Nope, those were all of my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And have we got an answer from Kathleen Patterson? Kathleen, if you can't unmute your microphone, you could put something in the chat box or you can call in. Otherwise, I'll just ask that perhaps you could send your, oops. Oh, Mr. Tout. Robert Tout, okay. I'll just hear from Kathleen Patterson first. No, okay, she's not responding. Robert Tout, you had a question?
Madam Mayor, I believe Mr. Tout's unable to unmute his mic also.
It looks like he might be calling in. He did put something on the chat about, and I didn't catch what the question was. So.
Would you like me to read it, Madam Mayor? I do have it up in front of me.
You do? Please,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah, Mr. Tout just said I have one question. Will the town homes be 2-story or 3-story high buildings?
Again, we're into design, but Mr. Jordan, do you have an answer for that?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that's one aspect of design that the zoning bylaw does regulate that we're applying for. And the maximum height will only allow a 2-story unit.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, Kathleen Patterson has put something in the chat, but it wasn't complete. Have you got that?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Ms.
Would you please
Patterson.
read it?
Yep, Ms. Patterson says it's not working for me. I will email my concern. Our water drain off at 269 Union. Our backyard floods in the spring. So it appears that Ms. Patterson will be sending email correspondence with her concerns.
Okay, thank you very much. And that is the end of the speakers. So thank you for attending and providing your input into the statutory public information meeting. Written comments can still be provided to planning staff following this meeting, and this concludes this portion of the meeting. And we'll now bring forward the report on page 21. Do I have a mover, please? And Mr. Clerk, can you put the motion up there?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the motion is on screen now.
Okay, that the report be received and that staff report back to council with a recommendation on these applications at the earliest opportunity. So again, this is an information sharing session and staff will come back with a recommendation. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Watton? Is that you? And Councillor Kiesebrink? Have I got that correct? Or is your hands up from before?
No, you're right, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Watton?
That's correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Watton, seconded by Councillor Kiesebrink. Mr. Clerk, any other questions? Councillor Watton, your hand up? Just for moving it? Okay.
That's correct,
no
Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, will you, Councillor McDougall, is your hand up to ask a question?
This mute button. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I had one quick question for staff, just with regards to, I heard a discussion of using stormwater management from 3 different subdivisions that were going to share one pond for stormwater purposes. Is that something that can be used for industrial purposes as well? Can multiple subdivisions share one pond in the industrial subdivision?
Ms. Prentice?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Typically the township owns stormwater management ponds within a residential area. In some cases, we do have a stormwater pond that takes stormwater runoff from a number of different employment sites in the employment area. But there are some ponds, I believe, that are proposed that would be private as well. So there's a bit of a mix in our employment area. But yes, definitely you can put multiple in one.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Clerk, will you call the question, please?
Voting is open, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Seeing that everyone's voted, I'm closing the vote now. And it should be on screen for you now, Madam Mayor.
Yes, it is, and it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Would we like to take a 10-minute break? And we'll come back at 11 minutes after 9. Everybody in agreement?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. We'll take a 10-minute break. See you at 9:11. I will call the meeting back to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Watton, are you still with us? Okay, we're getting some feedback from someone. Councillor Brown, I think that might be you. Councillor Watton, are you in attendance?
I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor McDougall.
Yes, JP, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guido.
I'm here.
Councillor Ross.
Present, thanks.
Councillor Kiesebrink.
I'm here.
And Councillor Brown. Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, we do have quorum. We can continue at whenever you're ready.
Thank you very much. And we'll move to report number 11.3. Since we don't have any presentations or delegations, we'll move on to the reports and 11.3, which is on page 38, I believe, of your agenda. And this is the draft plan of condominium application CS 2020-01-265-9163 Ontario Limited, 1622 Scugog Street, Highway 7A, Ward 2, recommendation report. I will call on Ms. Prentice. Is there anything that you would like to highlight in your report?
Through you, Madam Mayor, nothing further to add. This was basically the draft plan of condominium that goes with the townhouses being constructed at Highway 7 and Old Simcoe.
Right, on the south side, west side. Could I have a motion on the recommendations, please? And they're up there on the screen. And I have Councillor Brown and Councillor Watton. Questions or comments to the report? Councillor Brown?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Robin. Page 7 of 8, you mentioned staff following up with residents' voicing concerns. I just would like to know what follow-up means to you and how you proceeded, please.
Councillor Brown, can you turn off your mic? Thank you. Yeah, we're getting a lot of feedback. Ms. Prentice?
Sure, through you, Madam Mayor. So we had 2 residents reach out on this development. We didn't list them as comments because their comments weren't really with respect to the condominium application. They were more so with respect to the construction itself of the site. So one we received via written letter. So we wrote back and addressed their comments and concerns as best we could in a written letter. Another one we received via email, and we emailed them back to address their comments and concerns as well. A lot of them previously, as discussed with the Del Park public meeting, we addressed with respect to a construction management plan for the site and just directing them in terms of what dust mitigation measures are in place, as well as what construction access points there are for the site.
Thank
you. Thank you. Subsequent, and through you, Madam Mayor, if I may, and I apologize if I'm reverberating here. My submission to you may be that it might be difficult getting those people who are going to be living in that condominium building out onto Old Simcoe and then right on 7A or across 7A, or however they determine to go. I'm not sure whether you have had any comments from people who are concerned about the ability to enter those roads or not. And I think something I mentioned before, that every time I drive by there, which is frequently, I still shake my head. I think it's going to be a problem.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, could you turn off your mic again, please? Thank you. Ms. Prentice, would you like to address that? Yeah.
Yes, I can, Madam Mayor. So a couple things there. The comments we got from the 2 people recently were more so with respect to traffic on the roads around them, not necessarily with respect to the residents from that development getting out onto Old Simcoe. But our traffic study showed that there shouldn't be any concerns. There weren't any concerns from a traffic study perspective with respect to the traffic from this development and within the development and getting out onto Old Simcoe. So they take a look at how many cars are generated from that proposed development and how it fits in with the development or the road network around it.
Could I ask, is there the possibility that the traffic light duration may change, or would the MPO look at that with that development going in there?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, that's something that they would take a look at with respect to the timing of those signals. And that's something I believe all agencies continue to review the timing of their signals as development comes online and how the road network functions, and they can tweak that over time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Brown. I see no further questions. Mr. Clerk, could you call the question, please?
Madam Mayor, voting is open.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, it's Councillor Kiesebrink. I think I may have a conflict of interest. I have a family member through marriage who works at the property immediately adjacent. So I think I should, out of an abundance of caution, declare pecuniary interest on this one, please.
Okay, thank you.
Madam,
See, Councillor McDougall's got his hand up. So, Councillor McDougall, did you have a question?
I did, Madam Mayor. I just had a question with regards to the setbacks of the property at the corner. I see that they're angled back, and I was just wondering, probably a question for Robin. Are those properties, like the way it's kind of tipped back on the corner of Sugog Street and Old Skoog, is that to accommodate the future roundabout that Councillor Brown had talked about previously?
Ms. Prentice?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of a roundabout, but are you talking about the northeast corner of the site at the intersection?
Yeah, at the intersection of 7A and Old Simcoe, I see that the corner is knocked back and several quarters there, so I wasn't sure if that's possibly, I know Councillor Brown had spoken previously about a roundabout along Old Simcoe, so is that what that's for?
No, it's not a roundabout. That would be up to MTO if they're looking to put a roundabout. It's a daylighting triangle that comes off of the corner, and that's to address sight lines at an intersection.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Again, seeing no further questions, Mr. Clerk, can you call the question, please?
Madam Mayor, I need Councillor Kiesebrink to enter her conflict in, or else the electronic voting system won't recognize her having a conflict.
Okay, and of course, Councillor Guido also has a conflict on this.
Mr. Clerk, I'm not sure where I do that.
If you're on that item in the application, at the bottom, there should be in the middle column, there should be a check mark. Click on that check mark and then just answer the two questions there. I think it's one or two questions.
I do see the check mark, but it's not letting me select it.
Okay, let me do it from my end. If you could just slowly tell me the reasoning and I'll type it in for you.
I would like to declare pecuniary interest because an extended family member works immediately adjacent to that property. So there could be a financial impact.
Okay, just to confirm, an extended family member works immediately adjacent to the subject property.
Thank you.
Okay, same. Okay, Madam Mayor, I have that recorded now. Would you like me to open the voting?
Yes, please.
Voting is now open, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
And seeing that everyone has voted, except for Councillor Guido and Councillor Kiesebrink, I'm closing the vote. And it should be on screen for you now.
And that is carried by unanimously by those who could vote. Thank you very much. And we'll now turn to page 38 on your agenda. And this is a draft plan of condominium application, CS 2020-01, 2659163 Ontario Limited. 1622 Scugog Street 7A. That's the one we just voted on, isn't it? Yes, I'm sorry. It's now on page 66 of your agenda. And that is the lease. Sorry, that is M. Somerville Two Blokes Cidery, 21300 Simcoe Street, part of lots 23 and 24, concession 12, Ward 1. This is a recommendation report. Ms. Alston, do you have any comments on this? Nothing to add to your report? Do I have any, do I have a motion, please, to the recommendations? Councillor Watton and Councillor Guido. Questions or comments to the report? Councillor Watton.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, it was up to move.
Okay, are there any questions to this report and the motion before you? Seeing none. Mr. Clerk, can you call the vote, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the voting is now open.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, I'm not seeing the vote box coming on screen. Councillor Keesbrink speaking.
Yeah, would you like to submit your vote verbally?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to vote in support.
Thank you very much. And seeing everyone has voted, I'm closing the vote now, Madam Mayor, and it should be on screen for you now.
Thank you, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And we'll now turn to the Port Perry Tennis Club lease renewal. And that is on page, I'm sorry, I've got the wrong page. Anyway, that is on page 66 of the tennis club lease renewal. And that is the Sandra Frey. Did you have anything you would like to add to your report, Ms. Frey?
Madam Mayor, it's Director Newman. I'll speak for Ms. Frey.
Okay.
No, we have nothing further to add. I believe it's self-explanatory.
Okay. Mover, please. Councillor McDougall, are you moving?
Yes, I'll move that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and Councillor Brown, are you seconding?
Yes, I am, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? Councillor McDougall.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just looking at the lease, I see the lease is for 1 year. Is that to possibly accommodate the waterfront plan, or is that how we deal with this on an annual basis?
That's correct. Mr. Clerk, would you like to add anything to that?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Council. Yes, that is correct. This was done last year in accordance with to not predetermine the waterfront action plan. So, subject to that, the tennis club has requested a longer-term lease, but they also are aware that we are waiting for the waterfront action plan to be complete prior to that.
So, thank you, Madam Mayor. So, just further, we'll just see this back again next year. I'm assuming that we probably won't be in the phases of moving that too far ahead within the next 12 months. So it'll probably come up again next year at this time.
Well, we'll need to renew it if that is their wish.
Very
in
good.
a year's time, because it's just for a year. Any other
Okay.
questions or comments?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, anybody else? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, will you call the vote, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the voting is now open.
Councillor Kieselbrink voting in support.
Thank you very much, and closing the vote now, Madam Mayor, seeing that everyone has voted, and it should be on screen for you now.
Thank you, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. There is no correspondence, no new business, no closed session. I'll have a motion to adjourn. Oh, Councillor Guido. Seconder, Councillor Kieselbrink. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor. Mr. Clerk.
Voting is open, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Councillor Kieselbrink voting in support.
Thank you very much. And seeing that everyone has voted, I'm closing the vote now, Madam Mayor, and it should be on the screen for you.
Thank you, and it's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for great reports, and thank you to the public for your input in this evening's meeting. And thank you, staff. Thank you, council. Have a good evening.